What happens when the boogeyman goes to find a killer mask, but he can only find Star Trek?
Same difference. Welcome to Retro Film Reviews, where we'd like to take at movies that shaped our generation. We're going to finish October in our spooky movie series with the 1978 Halloween, which was directed and written by John Carpenter.
And I'm Ed.
And I'm Thor.
And first, like and subscribe to Retro Film Review and tell us what you think about Halloween after you watch it.
So tell us about what this movie's about, Ed.
All right.
You picked it.
I did, because it's fantastic. So, Michael Myers was a troubled kid. When he was young, he killed his older sister and then was put in a mental hospital. About 15 years later, he escapes to go back home and wreak havoc on his hometown.
That's a pretty good summary of it.
I think so, too.
Yeah.
So, this movie, in today's standard, it would be called an independent film. Yeah. Because this was made on a shoestring budget. John Carpenter, who directed it, was given $300,000 to make a horror film.
Wow. And
so he had to really work at trying to figure out how to maximize his budget to make this film. The majority of the budget, which what really makes this movie so cinematic, was that this was the first use of basically a Steadicam. But they had spent a majority of their budget on getting this camera, which gave it a very cinematic scope to it for a very small budgeted film.
Yeah, well, that helps allow you, if you don't know what it is, the cameraman can actually follow forward or backwards, whichever they want to go, upstairs, downstairs, and it keeps it steady. You don't get the motion of it. That's right. That's why it's called a Steadicam, plain and simple.
And you could also do tracking shots where you can follow somebody in and out of rooms and get basically what I call basically the classic opening of this movie. I don't know, because it's pretty much done in a one shot. It's actually done in about two, but they had to figure out somewhere to make a cut. Do you know why?
Why?
Because the camera at that time could only hold 4.5 minutes of footage. And the opening shot was about 7 minutes long. So they didn't have enough footage or enough camera to make the whole shot. So they had to find somewhere to do that. So as he's moving around the house, the young Michael,
right,
and you see people come in and out of the camera, and he puts on a mask. And then your video shows just the image of the mask. That was where they made the cut.
That's probably where they cut it.
Because it turns black for like a second whenever he situates the mask, and there was your cut. But the rest of it was all done in single takes. Which,
well, you could tell, yeah, definitely.
But for that time period that you did, that was kind of arterial. It wasn't very. People didn't do that,
right?
And so. The other thing you notice about this movie, yes, it's rated R, but there's very little blood.
Well, yeah, and the blood that they show is really fake. I mean, even probably for that era, it's fake. I mean,
right. But you compare this to the Halloween movies that come out now, especially even the one that came out, just 2 weeks ago, which I haven't seen, but
Kills, yeah.
I haven't seen it, but I've heard that it is extremely gory. And
well, even Halloween 2 was even gorier,
right,
than the original.
Right, trying to up the ante.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's a different director.
Right, but I think what makes this so good is kind of how I see James Wan as a director today, who does a lot of more modern horror films. But it's all about what is in the mind. Michael Myers is not. He's kind of the lurker. He's one that stands in the shadows and watches what everybody does, and then kind of makes his move. And so to me, sometimes just having that shadow figure that's lurking outside or staring at you, and your mind makes it more scarier than actually what it is.
Yeah, definitely. This was my first time watching this. Can you believe it? I am this many years old, and this is my first time. But that's what was kind of really cool. There was a lot of things I liked about this movie, and a lot of things I didn't like about this movie. A lot of questions, but a lot of that has to go with that $300,000 budget. That probably shows what it is, and some new actors and actresses. But he never ran anywhere. Michael Myers, not that I remember seeing, he walked everywhere he was going. And part of the cinematography, which I wanted to talk about, with him just appearing out of the shadows, all of a sudden you'll see, and then all of a sudden like the reflection off the glass is showing him back behind you. Mm-hmm. And then even then sometimes he's not jumping out and getting you. It's like waiting for that perfect moment, which just keeps us in suspense.
Right.
But, yeah.
Well, and it was very much... If you look at a lot of the kills or the way that a lot of the suspenseful moments, it was direct your attention to the right, but attack you on the left, so that you're misdirected about where you're going. But he did have he did steal the station wagon at the beginning.
Yeah, but he didn't kill. How did he know how to drive? That was one of my questions. He was taken as a little boy to the mental hospital, and then he escapes 15 years later, which I don't even know how they escaped. They were all standing in the rain, and how they broke out, I don't know. But he gets in the car, kicks the woman out. He basically was trying to kill her, but I think he was just trying to get her out. Yeah. And then he drives. And not only does he just drive away, he drives 150 miles to Haydenville, where he was from. Yeah. So how do you know how to get there?
Signs on the
smartphone.
Maybe they had good tutorials in the mental institution. Good self-help videos or something. Self-help. I guess that was before videos. It's self-help books or something.
But in this first film, you're talking about like the kill count or something like that. He really doesn't kill that many people.
There's only 5, something like that.
But yeah, because the guy he gets the coveralls from.
Right.
So that would have been actually number 2.
Okay.
His sister, the mechanic, Annie, Linda, and Bob. But Bob and then Linda.
Right. Yeah. So it's not many.
No.
And which, in today's standards for slasher films,
it's pretty tame.
That's pretty tame.
But you know what? No, excuse me. He kills the dog. Sorry, if you haven't seen it like me,
spoiler alert.
Sorry. He kills the dog, the German Shepherd.
It's annoying, but still, yeah, you don't kill the dogs.
No.
That makes you really hate Michael.
Yeah, the rest of them, they deserved it. I'm kidding. But the dog, no, the dog was just trying to protect.
So now, what did you think of the film? What was your, what was one of your favorite or least favorite?
Well, I got a couple least favorites, but I think for 78. For what it was, on the budget it had, I think it was a great film.
Right.
The cinematography was amazing. The score that they did, which they did in 3 days.
Yeah. Written by John Carpenter.
Yeah, it was phenomenal because it always cued you in when they did the little piano keyboard thing that Michael was nearby.
Something was going
to happen. So those were, I think, the best things. They did paint teenagers as they were,
Idiots,
but then also basically wanting to be sexually active,
Right.
And then especially you were in the 70s, and of course that's past the summer of love that they used to have. But it painted teenagers in a right light, in my opinion. Right. Some of them, like Lori, Jamie Lee Curtis, was trying to do the right thing. She was wanting to study, wanting to babysit and make some extra money, wasn't too concerned about things. Anyway, I think it did that. That was a good thing. It showed the adults kind of like the era that they would be.
More idiots.
Well, non-assuming, not worried. They're just, you kind of place you leave your doors open.
Right.
You're not worried about it. No harm is really going to come to the area. Stuff. Now news travels so fast. You know what happens across the globe within 5 minutes.
Right.
Back in the 70s, you did not. Some of the things I didn't like about the film, the death of a couple of the people, his sister, which I don't remember what her name is.
At the beginning.
At the very beginning, when Michael Myers, when he kills his sister, I mean, I guess I can give it away, but she's, not Michael, and she just like, seriously?
Oh, you're talking about the acting of it.
Yeah, the acting of it. And then, I mean, the premise is good.
Right.
You got this deranged child that goes in for whatever reason. We don't know his motive.
Right.
Unless it's revealed in Halloween 2, 3, 6, 12, whatever. But
his motive changes based on each movie that comes out.
But, so we don't, at the time, we don't know his motive. But he kills his sister. And then, she dies silly in my way. Not the way he killed her, but her acting. And then again, when PJ Souls, who played Linda, when she dies, it sounds like she's in the middle of intercourse, and she's being strangled, and and the girl's on the other line going, "Really? You're going to call me during this time? Wait, are you all right?"
Yeah.
So, I mean, and along with Linda's death, whenever Lori comes in and she finds everybody, and she opens the cabinet door, the girl's in there with her eyes like, I mean, it was like, how silly can you be? It's like, make a goofy face.
Well, I think, though, the one thing I've always liked about Michael Myers versus Jason or Freddy or all these other iconic horror icons is that Michael Myers tends to have a sense of humor about himself. He's some type of playfulness with him, especially with this movie. Now, I'm not taking that into consideration, so they're all terrible. But with this one, the one where he stabs
Bob. No.
Bob. He's the one that PJ Souls' boyfriend. Yeah. And you just see him stare at him, and he just kind of tilts his head so slightly as if like he's admiring his work. And it's just, but that little nuance. Or him coming back in with the sheet over himself and the glasses.
That was funny.
It's funny. Just, I think that little playfulness and the way and I know it seems kind of silly at the time of watching it, but he does pose his victims. I mean, with what he did for Annie, and posing her on the bed with his mother's grave, and the pumpkin.
Oh, that was his mother's. I thought it was his sister's.
That was his mother's grave. Or it was Judith. Yeah, and so I
didn't know why he put it on the bed. Why he took the thing and put it in the other house. The tombstone.
Right. Well, and that's what I'm saying. It's just a flair for the theatrics with that.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't he put it in his own home? Because that's where they thought they were going to at their house.
Yeah.
But then just the way that he poses everybody, and honestly, with a lot of the subsequent movies, he does pose people after he's killed them. He just that's just kind of his thing he does, and so that's why that's why I like. I mean, not that I like the way they killed, but I think that it's kind of tongue in cheek a little bit.
I tell you, he stabbed 2, and he strangled 2. So I thought, before I saw this, I thought he was always with the knife, because everything you see, he's always holding the big butcher knife.
Right.
But, when he went for Lori, he came out of the thing, and he just was like, it was like a half little stab at Lori. I'll get you. And it just barely grazed her arm. She's like, Which, I love Jamie Lee Curtis. Well, you could tell this was her first film. With some of her acting, or maybe that's how they told her to do it, but her acting has definitely improved since then.
It's funny whenever they had, so this is on a Netflix special that I saw, that they were talking about hiring Jamie Lee Curtis, and I guess the casting director was telling the producer, like, who do you have? It's like Jamie Lee Curtis. What has she been? She's been in a couple of Columbo TV shows, is what she in. And he was like, well, that's really, we don't need to get her. And he was like, who is she? Like, it's the daughter of Janet Leigh from Psycho and Tony Curtis. He's like, get her.
Yeah, publicity.
Right, exactly. So the daughter of the lady from Psycho, what?
Well, let me ask. Let's go back to whenever Michael killed his sister when he was a boy.
Okay.
A couple issues I have with that. One, the camera angle. It was from like a grown adult, because like he grabs the knife and then all of a sudden he's coming like way up off the counter, and then he's opening the door, and his point of view is, it seems a lot higher, and she's like looking up.
I think there's a lot
of
that.
She's sitting down, but she's like looking up. Michael.
Well, and she's at the little vanity trying to do her hair. But I think a lot of that is because he had robo arms whenever he would reach out to grab something.
Yeah, that little mask.
And I think that was just done because he really didn't have. I mean, they had the camera that they're going, and somebody else was trying to reach down in front of it. It's probably the best they could do at the time.
It worked. I mean, it's fine.
Yeah.
It really, because it does work, because then not the spoiler, but the giveaway is all of a sudden the parents come home as he's walked out, and then you see it's a little boy, and you're like, ooh, I thought it was a man.
Right.
I didn't know that was the brother. And that was another thing I thought was funny.
They just stare at him?
They just stare at him. Well, the mother, she sits there and she puts her hand in her pocket and looks at him like... And the dad just takes the mask off, Michael, and he's sitting there with a bloody knife. No.
I know. It was like freeze frame and then pull back.
Yeah, they did the pull back on the camera, but it was like, let me grab the knife from you. Obviously, they knew he was a little disturbed, but because the mother just sat there, put her hand in her pocket like, really?
They call it a pregnancy pause.
I do have one, I think, major flaw with it. Yes.
Do tell.
And you see it, but you see the same thing using a lot of memes or GIFs or GIFs or whatever, how you say it. Jamie Lee Curtis, she's sitting in the window on the second floor. It's daytime. And she looks out the window and she sees Michael between the sheets on the clothesline, right? And then it pans to her, or the camera shot goes to her. Then it goes back out the window. He's gone. Right?
Right.
She never looks away from the window. She's looking out the window.
Yeah.
This is the camera point of view. Michael's down there. The next camera shot shows her looking out the window. The next camera shot is her looking out the window. It wasn't like she goes like, oh no, and then looks back out the window. She continually stares out the window.
Gone.
And then that made me think, because I try to be creative sometimes, of an awesome plot twist. What if she was actually Michael? She envisioned the whole thing, and then she was the killer?
There you go.
That might have worked if there wasn't Halloween 20 and 30 and stuff.
Right.
But it was just, I've been watching too many of the Shining documentaries and theory stuff. That made me think of that. But I thought
that would have been
cool.
a good twist.
Yeah, like the guy escapes from the asylum. They can't find him. And then like she goes mental.
I mean, I still never really... So, I never really realized or understand why he chose her. Because he picks her out early on, that he just kind of follows.
I think the reason he picked her was he got to his old house. He was standing inside, reminiscing, doing whatever. And then she comes up with the little boy, and she's putting the key underneath the doormat. And that's the first girl he sees.
Yeah.
Or maybe there's some kind of
connection that he made.
She looks kind of like my sister.
Okay.
Or something. And
I forgot about that.
Maybe in his mind, maybe she survived. I mean, he's delusional.
Right.
He's insane. And so, but maybe that's why, maybe not.
Yeah.
Maybe he thought she was pretty and said she's got to go. I don't know.
Yeah.
Why don't we ask him? But I was also impressed when I did the research on this that it was only filmed in 20 days. It was over like a month and a half. But the actual filming days was 20 days.
So
it's crazy.
Another fun fact: it was filmed in the spring in California, so it was not filmed in the Midwest.
Right.
And what they said, they had a hard time finding pumpkins during the springtime. So they had 3. So they had is all they could get. And so the kid dropped one at the beginning.
Yeah.
And that was not supposed to happen.
Oh, really?
I don't think it was supposed to happen.
Oh,
man. I guess that was Tommy. Was that Tommy?
Yeah.
Doyle that dropped it? Yeah. And so then you had the one they carved, and then the one that was...
he fell on it. But yeah.
Well, the bullies were picking on him. And then you had the one that was, by Annie's bed.
Mm-hmm.
But they had another one. It was some green, large gourd that then they painted yellow.
Well,
orange.
Did we already say this? That the original title of the movie was The Babysitter Murders.
No.
So, and I forgot who told him, said, you ought to do it on like Halloween night and call it Halloween. or something just along those lines. And so that's probably, maybe they scrambled at the last minute or something. I mean, I don't know the time frame between the script and the screenplay to the actual filming. So it could have been one of those last things. But I did see where they didn't have enough leaves because, again, it was springtime and they needed leaves on the ground. So they would blow the leaves around, then they'd gather them all up after the scene to use them again. And I'm amazed at how many movies that the crew is out there painting leaves on trees to make it look fall or spring, or I've heard them, they're gluing leaves to trees. They're doing all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
It's
movie magic.
Movie magic. And I just imagine being a worker on any of these movies, and they're like, all right, go glue the leaves on the trees. And you're like, what?
Are you serious?
And then paint them. And then when we're done with the shot, take them all down. If we don't like the shot, do it again. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Okay.
And you're paying me for this.
I also thought they could have named the movie The Boogeyman, because they kept saying, the kids were like, the boogeyman's going to get you. The boogeyman's going to get you. And Lori's even talking about the boogeyman and all this stuff. Right. But in fact, I wrote down a favorite quote of mine from there, where after Michael is shot by Dr. Loomis, Lori says, was that the boogeyman? And he says, as a matter of fact, that was.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's just giving a name to what it was. And Dr. Loomis at the beginning kept saying it. He wasn't calling him a he. And the nurse was like, can we call it a he? Because it is a person. And he's like,
nah, I don't think so.
I don't think that's what you want to call this. So
and I would say Donald Pleasance, who played Dr. Loomis, was the big build person in this movie.
Yeah. He got paid, what, $20,000?
Something like that. Yeah. But I guess for a couple days' work, that's not too bad.
John Carpenter made out like a bandit, though. He took $10,000 to write, direct, do the score, but then he also got 10% of the profit, which it made $70 million in the box office.
Yeah. And honestly, you talked about before about the title change. Mm-hmm. That actually is what made this movie stay in the public eye, because the first year it came out, it was a modest hit, but then they put it back out again the next year, and it just kept growing and growing until it was one of those things that everybody had to see again. And then you make sequels, and then you're going back and seeing it. Yeah, exactly.
One question I have, because I know you like this movie, the heavy breathing that Michael did in the mask, it wasn't like Darth Vader where it was rhythmic. It was like somebody was really struggling behind this mask to breathe.
Right.
And I didn't think it was really necessary, or at least not as much.
I don't know. I thought it kind of gave some ominous sound, because it kind of put you in the mind of him, of just being like what, because you would see his perspective and hear that heavy breathing, and I thought that kind of, honestly, I thought it kind of gave a little bit of effect to it.
And I was actually kind of amazed at how brazen, is that the right word, he was to show up in the middle of the day. He showed up at the school.
Right.
Because actually, and that's what's weird, you say he's picking on Lori, but he went to the school and Tommy was there.
Yeah. And Tommy ran into him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and then of course he was behind the bushes on the walkway and driving the car around town and kind of being seen, and stand outside looking at Lori in the class, and it's just like, it was really creepy.
Well, and I think that's really the vibe that they wanted to give this movie, was creepy. And I think it is more of a thriller than I do really horror movie, because of I think if you look at it that way, you can have a different perspective on watching it. That it's not just a slasher.
I'll tell you what, it was my first time seeing it. And I don't watch a lot of horror movies, but I was like, this one makes me want to make a horror movie.
Right.
But you'd have to think of something that like nobody's done. I thought something that was cool about it, it was like foreshadowing maybe before he knew it was going to happen. When Lori's babysitting Tommy, and he's like, can we watch some horror movies and stuff? And she's like, sure. And on the screen, all you see it says is The Thing.
Right.
Well, John Carpenter
eventually
did the thing. And I'm like, wait a minute, that can't be right. Because that one came out in 82. This came out in 78. But
it probably was one of his favorite films.
it was, I wrote it down. The Thing from Another World. It was from 1951. So that's probably why you just shortened it. I've never seen The Thing from Another World. So
No, I have. It's one of those late night 70s black and white horror films. Yeah. I'd watch anything at that time.
apparently so. Oh, when he kills Bob.
Right. What about Bob?
Yeah, what about Bob? Baby steps. So, I love how it was done at first, but then it was like unrealistic. Like, I like how Bob went into the kitchen to get a beer and a snack or whatever, and Michael's waiting in the cabinets or in the pantry, and he comes out, picks him up, takes the knife, stabs him.
Bob doesn't weigh much, does he?
No, and so I'm like, that's pretty cool. But then you do this, the camera backs up or it's a different angle, and Bob is literally up. I mean, he's stabbed here, and he's standing up against the cabinet or whatever he's attached to.
Pinned to it, yeah.
But normal gravity, just weight would have you lean over, but he's like stiff as a board.
Because Bob was actually standing on a little box in his tippy toes while they were filming it with that box out of sight. So he was having.
Are you serious?
Yes, I am.
Wow. But I was just like, come on, you got to give at least the head down or something. But he's still just like straight up.
Right.
And then, like you said, Michael Myers takes the glasses and puts a sheet over him. Reminds me of the last movie we did, Beetlejuice.
Oh,
Put a
yes.
sheet over him. He didn't even cut out eyes, though. He just put it over. Didn't cut out eyes, and just had the glasses.
Cut out.
No.
Okay.
Um,
They were thin sheets.
we kind of alluded to this. What is his mask made out of?
So the mask is originally a Captain Kirk mask in the form of William Shatner. And so what they were trying to do is to find something that had a very faceless look to it. So they took it and they cut off the eyebrows. It's like a full mask.
Yeah.
And they shaved some of the hair and the sideburns off.
Made the eyes a little bigger.
Made the eyes bigger and then spray painted it white. But yeah. Captain Kirk.
How would you like that to be known? Well, we took a bust to your face and made it into a killer. Well, I guess that's better than skin as your
Right.
lady suit.
I don't know. I think William Shatner's doing quite fine right now.
Yeah.
Just went up to space.
Just went up to space, finally.
Right, exactly.
And now it's his final frontier.
Yeah.
I was trying to think of any other notes I had. What did you have a favorite scene or a favorite part of it?
So, I still think my favorite part of the movie is the point where he is fighting with Laurie from basically the closet scene to where he finally falls off the balcony. Like really that whole last little bit. It's just kind of just one thing after another. I do think it is incredibly silly where she stabs him with the knitting needles and it just kind of punctures right there and he falls down like that.
Yeah.
And then she does nothing.
That's what I have a problem with is she did nothing. She stabbed him and he pulls it out and he goes, drops to the ground. She looks over the couch.
Look what I did.
Oh, he's dead. She just sits on the couch like, oh my goodness. I'm like,
and I just don't
get out of the
understand
house.
why when she went screaming to the neighbors, unless it was just they all thought it was just pranks, nobody would help her.
yeah, they turned on the lights, looked out at her, and she's like, help me.
It's like she's crazy.
And what I thought,
That girl crazy.
I was wondering why they didn't help her, unless they thought it was a prank or something, because, again, this was set as middle America in the 70s.
Where nothing ever happened.
Nothing ever happened, so you are kind of curious about what's going on out there. Or at least open the window and say, shut up.
Yeah.
I mean, something. I'm trying to sleep.
And I guess she couldn't go in to say, help me, there's a killer in my house who's attacking the two kids I'm babysitting. you know,
Yeah.
which, because if you did that, then they would have called the cops and then it would have been over by that point. And you would not have had a movie.
But again, when, we talked how she stabbed him with the knitting needle and then didn't do anything. She just sat there. Well, then I guess she went to check on the kids to get them out. Well, then after she stabbed him, did she poke him in the eye with the...
No, around the neck.
No, not the knitting needle. With the clothes hanger. Where did she stab him? I thought it was in the eye.
I think that was in the eye.
How did his eye heal? Anyway, he's like...
He's supernatural.
But, so he's, back up, oh, whatever. And then she stabs him with his knife. And he drops down on the floor. And she just goes out in the hallway. Oh, no. I'm like, get out of the house. Leave. Right. Didn't you learn from that?
Get out.
But then the movie's so cool because then he's sitting there and whoop, he sits right up. You're like,
yeah, done.
Move.
Done. Yeah. Done. Well, and
then Lori didn't know that Dr. Loomis was in the house. So she's sitting there about to get attacked or whatever. Just got attacked. I don't remember right then. Right after he got up. And then there's gunshots going off. Wouldn't she freak out with that?
She's probably in shock. So
the ending was cool.
So the one with the very final ending, they had originally just ended up with Loomis looking over the balcony and he was gone.
All right.
And they needed something at the end just to kind of give that mysteriousness to him, as in he could be anywhere.
Right.
And that's where they went back into editing before they released it and added in all those little still shots of all the places that they had kind of been. Right. Which really does kind of leave you on like a coda saying that, yeah, he could be anywhere. He's still out there looking for you, and that better beware and watch behind the bushes and behind the back seat, the car, and all that kind of stuff. Which they said they wanted that feel, so as when people were leaving the theaters, it let that uneasiness of kind of going back home.
I saw Jeepers Creepers in the movie theater, and I loved because I'm not into horror movies, and I had to walk around my house in the dark to get in the house, no lights, and I was like, how fast can I get in this house and turn a light on?
Right.
Okay, I'm chicken, whatever.
Well, so my final word is really I think that it is the reason why I like it is that it's a very efficient movie making.
Yes.
It's a 90-minute film. I think all the characters are very well realized for what you need for the story. And I think that the tension that it keeps building as you get through the movie to where it just it just releases at the very end, I think that just brings it more to classic horror. And I really do like the fact that it is not a gore fest. I do like gore in movies, but I'm glad that this isn't, and that's why I always say this kind of me is more of the thriller than really a slasher horror film. So
I know some people like gore for gore's sake, and I'm not one of them. I mean, this was, from my first time seeing it, it was a great film. So I wasn't sure what I'd think, but it was great.
There you go.
Am I going to watch it again tonight? No. Will I watch it again? Sure.
But will you watch it for Halloween night? And let us know what your thoughts are on Halloween. Is it one of your ones you come to every year to kind of watch? And then let us know down in the comments, and like and subscribe, and come back next week for some more retro film review.
Bye.